Do you struggle with misunderstandings or feeling unheard? Today, we're going to unlock the secrets to effective team communication. And by the end of the podcast, you will be able to connect better with your team and achieve success together. Stick with us. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. I am your host, John Espinosa. I am your host, John Espinosa, to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. Hey everyone, John here. Welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. Today, we are going to unlock the secrets of communication within your team. Now remember, your team could be your family. Your team could be a community organization that you are a part of, a booster club that you sit on, a church group. A team could look like many different things, and communication is at the foundation of all great teams. So today, we're going to unlock those secrets. And I'm going to talk about 4 things that you can do to increase team communication. One of the things when I work with teams and I work with groups, communication always comes up, either as an opportunity or a weakness. And the way that I dig into both of those comes about on whether it's external or it's internal. A lot of times when I hear people tell me that communication is a weakness, it's internal to the team. So we begin to unpack, well, how are you currently communicating? Are you communicating via email? Is it face-to-face, in person, via Teams, via Zoom, in a virtual environment? Or are you just sending texts? That is very important to understand whenever I hear that communication is a weakness in an organization or within a team. If it is an opportunity, a lot of times it's external. So how does the team communicate outwards? Are they working with different stakeholders? Are they engaging with another team, another group? Are they providing inputs or outputs to that workflow or that process? That's where we can look for ways to improve on that opportunity. One of the things that I have witnessed when communication begins to break down in a team environment, a lot of times we don't have clear expectations. Roles and responsibilities within a team are very important to establish right up front. Contracting is a way to do that. You assign each team member a role and a responsibility within the team. You set those clear expectations. Expectation might be as easy as, hey, we're going to meet every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Or the expectation may be, come to the meetings ready to talk about your part, your role, your responsibility within the team. When people show up to meetings and they're not prepared, whose fault is that? A lot of times it falls on the leader's fault because those clear expectations weren't set. And if they were set, then we're having a different conversation. I find when teams do not have effective communication, a lot of times it's because there is a lack of expectations. And this doesn't have to come from a manager or a leader. The team itself can set those expectations. They can do that via ground rules. They can do it formally in a charter. This is how the team is going to operate. This is the products or the deliverables that the team is going to accomplish or hand off. And I know what you're thinking. John, my team is my family. Same thing. Set those expectations. Maybe it's dinner every Sunday. Everyone's going to sit at the table and we're all going to put away our electronics and have a conversation. It can be as easy as that, where instead of on Sunday, you tell everyone to come over for dinner, but then what? Everybody's on their phone, texting or scrolling social media. And now as a parent, you're getting frustrated, but we didn't set that expectation in the beginning. So set the expectation for how the team is going to communicate, how often, the frequency, what the expectation is as far as, are you supposed to respond in 24 hours? That's a big piece too. I always coach and mentor folks to at least respond within 24 hours to let the individuals know that you've received the communication and you're working on it in a time that they can expect a return communication. Again, that expectation is set on when to respond in the time limit to respond in. So you can see through these examples that setting those expectations really lays the foundation for how the team is going to operate from a communication standpoint. So that's the first trick. The second one is validate those assumptions. And a lot of times I do this through check-ins. You can be sitting in a meeting or in a conversation in a group setting and you hear something. I'm a fixer. So I immediately go into fix-it mode, especially if it's a challenge or if it's a problem somebody is having. I immediately get into problem-solving mode and I start thinking about all the different ways that I can give advice or I can solve the problem myself. But a lot of the times, the individual just wants to be heard. The individual just wants to be able to get it out and communicate with others. They're not looking for a resolution or a solution to their challenge or their problem. But as a fixer, I've assumed that that's why they're talking to me. So you can either call a timeout or just do a little check-in. The conversation's already started and you ask the individual, hey, I'm just checking in with you. Do you need somebody to listen? Because I'm very good at that. Or are you asking for my advice? And it can be simple as that. Again, don't complicate these things. I find whenever we begin to put in a lot of processes and checks and balances, communication, we just make it harder. And communication is hard enough in a team environment, in a group environment. So let's just simplify this. So again, those check-ins are important. When you begin to assume things, when that story reel starts rolling in your mind, that's a time to time out, get a little check-in. Another way to check in I love is I heard you say this. Either repeat back what you heard just to check in with that individual. A lot of times they will agree that that's what they said, or they may rephrase it. No, John, that's not what I meant. Sorry, I came across that way. So you can see as we begin to implement these strategies, it's important for us really to quiet our mind, be active listeners, understand and realize whenever we are creating assumptions, when we're telling ourselves those stories, take a brief pause and do a check-in. The third strategy we're going to talk about today is assuming positive intent. And this seems common sense, but it's not common practice. Example, this afternoon. So I rolled into the house today after work, running some errands after work, and I still had some things on my mind from work. I was playing them back, checking in with myself, making sure I couldn't have done something better. And my wife began a conversation with me. Well, at that time, I wasn't ready for a full blown out conversation, and I was short because of the fact that I didn't respect that conversation. And I could have simply said, I got a couple things I'm thinking about. Give me 5 minutes, go take some notes, write them down, or finish thinking, and then we can have a conversation. Instead, I sharply just said, not right now. Well, if I told you that and I put my hand out like that, not right now, then things escalated. I did not assume positive intent with the conversation. So you can see how just those little nuances, giving the other person a benefit of a doubt, giving them respect, saying, I'm not ready for the conversation right now, if that's the case. And a lot of times that other individual will respect that. Now, I'm not saying you can't disagree, because disagreement is healthy for relationships when it's used in a positive way. So assuming positive intent means that other person has your best interests and I have theirs. And if we have that mutual understanding that we are both in this together, we can have a disagreement and still come out on top. We can collaborate, which we're going to talk about this season, and we can figure out a solution that we both can go forward with. So assuming positive intent, a big thing, especially when you start a conversation, because a lot of times, if I don't believe that that individual on the other side or the team has my best interests, what do I begin to do? I begin to withhold information. And that is the last thing that we want to happen, especially when we are communicating in a team environment. If people feel that we're withholding information, then they begin to withhold information. So you can see this can snowball pretty quickly. So assuming positive intent is a big key to initiating conversations and making sure that everybody feels comfortable enough to share. The last strategy, the fourth one that I want to propose, is adaptation. Now follow me on this one, because I'm not asking you to go to the other side. I'm asking you to adapt to the relationship, to the team. A lot of times, we're not just part of one team. We may have a team at work, We may have a team at home. We may have a team that we work with at school. And teams don't necessarily have to go out after hours or be with each other on the weekends and in the evenings. Teams, cohesive teams, have that psychological safety factor that allows them to adapt to each other. So we all have preferences. And if you've ever taken any of the assessments, the Myers-Briggs type assessment or the DISC assessment, they're really good assessments to understand your perceptions and how you perceive information, and then create an awareness around how others perceive that information. So if I'm in a team environment and I'm communicating and there's a due date and we're coming up on the due date, or in a family environment, maybe, there's a deadline that you have to meet to book a vacation or order team uniforms, because I'm in that right now. We're ordering uniforms for the upcoming soccer season, and we have a deadline, which is tomorrow. So how do you adapt your communication style to make sure that everybody's on the same page and the deadline is met? Now, you could go in blazing trails and say, all right, everybody, we got a deadline tomorrow. I need your information. I need your input right now. I don't know about your group or your team. A lot of times that's not going to fly. Instead, state your purpose, state your why. I know everybody's very busy. We got an upcoming deadline. How can we work together to get the information we need in order to meet this very important deadline? See the difference there in those conversations. So just that little way of how you adapt, because when we get stressed, especially when there's a deadline upcoming, we're going to revert back into what's comfortable. And a lot of time, that's going to be our preference. But if we need to help lead or influence, educate, promote, whatever we need to do within the team, we may have to come out of that preference and work together to make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction. Because in the end, great teams, successful teams, strive to achieve one single purpose. And as long as everybody's pulling in the same direction, there can be conflict, there can be disagreement. But through the foundation of setting clear expectations, making sure that we validate assumptions, creating those timeouts or those check-in periods, assuming positive intent when we go into conversations. That doesn't mean that you can't disagree, but you need to have a little bit of respect for individuals and assume that they have their best interests and you have theirs. And then last but not least, have a little flexibility and be willing to adapt, to come out of your preference, see another side of the story. I know those 4 strategies are going to help you alleviate that feeling of misunderstanding or being unheard. That's going to go a long way for you and your team to achieve those goals that you set for yourselves. I hope that helps somebody today. If you're part of a team and you have other teammates, do me a favor, share this with them. You might be surprised about the outcome. Go be great. We'll talk to everyone later. Bye-bye. If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor, click on that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.